Welcome back to Start the Snowball podcast, where we help you start an online business or get your side project off the ground. My name is Corey Miller, and I'm joined by my awesome co host, Brad Osborne. And we've got a great episode lined up today. This is what Brad has been working on prolifically the last couple of weeks, and we have been talking through. And I'm excited when he starts to share his process, and I add a little commentary as we go. But this is episode 6, and today we're going to talk about how to discover exactly what your audience is looking for and how you can deliver it to them. All right, Brad, why did we even come to this subject today? I know it's been on our conversations, and you've been doing the deep dive into this.
Well, a lot of times in business, these problems kind of present themselves because they're the kind of brick wall that you're hitting. And we hit that with some of the projects that we worked together on. And it was a good reminder, I think, for both of us that there is an answer. The answer is out there to what your audience is looking for. Like, basically, if you follow the right process, which we're going to outline here, your audience will tell you exactly what they need. And that means products that you create are going to be successful from the beginning because it's exactly what they're looking for. The way that you speak, communicate to your audience is going to be really impactful. It's going to, just inherently be motivating to them and exciting to them because you're going to talk about things they care about. You're going to talk about it in a way that they resonate with. And I just think it was a big reminder to me that the answer is out there. If you just know where to look, basically your audience is just begging you for products and solutions. They're begging for answers and they want you to provide them. So that's our job as entrepreneurs. If you're starting a business or a side hustle, this just makes everything easier. This is like the one thing in the beginning that everything you do after it becomes easier if you get this figured out.
Yeah. And like I confessed, too often I start with the idea for what I want to do or whatever's on my mind. Like, oh, I just want to create this content or I want to create this product. And I don't start with this very simple yet profound way to do things, which is start with the customer, start with the audience. We're going to be talking about all that and more, but I'm like you. I love that, if you do it not this way, you're likely going to be guessing. Not to say you're going to fail at it, because you could stumble on something, but the guessing side of this is just it's way tougher. You feel like you're in the dark versus the way you're saying, which is talk to the actual person you want to sell to and find out their pain. So I did this morning, Brad, with one of my partners. We were talking about this project, and I said, "Whoa, let's start back because we were starting with the answer, and let's start back. Who are we going to serve as best we can?" We start ideating around that, and then I asked, "What's the problem? What's the problem they have, or problems? Excuse me. Everybody has some problems, and that comes in the form of pain, challenges, frustrations, anger. All those things are good stuff for the entrepreneur because that's what we can create problems or solutions for."
Yeah. So how did that conversation work for you in that business? Like, where do you?
So what I think you asked me just now, we had a little, the internet, it's got to be the internet. What you asked me was, tell me about that experience a little bit. And so it was the project I think you're going to be talking about too, through yours, but it just felt so much more natural to go, let's start at the customer. And so it happened to be freelancers, and we're thinking about, freelance web designers. We're thinking about, okay, what are the types of freelancers first? There are assemblers, people that in the WordPress ecosystem anyway, they take a bunch of tools, software tools, and WordPress themes or plugins, cobble them together, and then package that and sell it to a customer. So we started kind of defining out that one of them was maybe they're more established and are doing the feast and famine, but we just thought broadly the people we're trying to serve. And then we started saying, what are their problems? And, in the freelancer web design world, like most any freelancers, there's a feast and famine. But what we kind of landed on, and we got our call got interrupted for another meeting, was oftentimes for this, and this well, freelance web designers, anybody trying to build a website, you get stuck on a problem and you go to Google and you try to solve it, whether that's CSS or some weird glitch or just setting up a piece of software. And particularly in WordPress and web design, this is definitely more prolific. But I think anyway, it's the space I've swam in for a long time. Is you get stuck and you're like, okay, I could go hit support, try to find documentation. You spend yourself, wasting time. And what we kind of put a pin in was, what if how this problem right here is really interesting, and we started putting up competitors and adjacents and to what we might do there, and going, there might be something here where we're going to help people get unstuck with those questions. And it's very similar, Brad, to like I propped up to Digital Marketing Kitchen that you've been on, and I partner with Rebecca Gill there, and we talk about SEO and digital marketing and stuff. But the people that come there are kind of in that realm. So we had a one-to-one kind of audience. It's not the same audience, but it's similar, where you get stuck and you're trying to Google and you don't feel certain and you need a little bit of help. And so that's where we left the conversation, was right there with like, what you get stuck, there's a problem. And that's as far as we got today. But I feel so much better, Brad, versus coming in with the solution, what we kind of want to do. Now, I think that needs to play into it. But this is organic. This is the natural way. And like you're saying, guessing sucks. Don't do guessing.
Yeah. I love that. It really does. It just makes everything better. And so we're going to show you exactly how to do it. Even if, like, it sounds like one of the advantages you have in several of your businesses, Corey, is that you have been your customer, right? So you don't have to work so hard to guess what some of your customer avatars are looking for, because you have been them. Now, in some of your other businesses that we'll talk about, you're close to the customer avatar, but you haven't been that avatar, right? So we're going to show you how to figure out what people are looking for, even if you are not them. So that's part of the skill of being a copywriter or a marketer, is that we are able to step into someone else's shoes. And it's not this purely like ethereal concept. It's literally, there's a step-by-step process, which we'll show. But so we're talking about guessing. I think it'd be kind of good to explain some of the problems that happen when you're just guessing and you aren't going from a proven set of problems and pain points and solutions that your audience is looking for. So I think the guessing is expensive. I think that if you launch products that people aren't already looking for, which we often do as creative people, we want to launch a product that we're excited about. And I like what you said earlier too. There's always a way to take the idea or the product that you want to make and that you're excited about, and tweak it, or tweak the messaging of it so that it does resonate with the audience you want to serve, right? Guessing is expensive. You can spend a lot of money on ads that are ineffective, on products that people aren't quite looking for. So I don't know if you have some kind of stories from the trenches. I know you've launched a lot of products in your day.
We can rephrase it. I know you failed at a lot of times in your day, and absolutely, because I didn't come with this approach. I think this increases your odds. The project you and I've been working on was like, let's don't guess. Why would we guess? I think part of the problem, Brad, I'm curious what you think about this, is it's that we get enamored with an idea. And I'm saying me. I get enamored and I get excited and I think this is the best thing since sliced bread or sliced peanut butter. That's a thing. I met the person that invented that. Yeah. For Vita bars, by the way. But we get enamored with these ideas and we think our ideas are the best. And you know what? Time and time again for me, Brad, is that you do the research, but honestly, it's a path that you're trying to follow, and it's serendipitous, and it's not you are all knowing and see everything and pin it down. I think that's so rare that our ideas actually spark something. Like you said, a lot of my stuff has started as I'm the customer. My first full-fledged company, iThemes, was like I was the customer. You're dead on straight there. And I stayed the customer for 10 plus years, and it helped us build what we were doing. a lot of these projects I've done, I'm not necessarily the customer. So that's a great nuance. And I appreciate you sharing that, which is why, like, for instance, the one we've been working on is for therapists. I am not a clinician. You know that very well. You're not a clinician. So we're using these tools to go out and find more. But the thing it comes back to, Brad, is empathy. You just talked about that. Walking in other people's shoes, and the stuff that you're going to share, we're going to talk about, is so critical to try to get so you stop guessing or guess less and do more actual on the ground research and even talking to people. But I mentioned, and this one thing I want to hear your feedback on all this is the idea concept when we get enamored is like this. You've probably heard this. When you have a hammer in your hand, everything looks like a nail. Like okay, I've got a hammer. Where's the nail? There's a nail. Go hit the nail. And yeah. I too often reverse engineer the hammer. I've got a hammer. Who's it good for? Well, that might be some marketer's role at some point, but I don't know if that's the role or the purpose or the job of the entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's yeah, it's awesome. And sometimes I think as a marketer, that is kind of what you're asked to do, is like, hey, we have this vacuum cleaner. We want to sell it to these people, figure it out. And you can do that. But if you do have control over what the product is at its core, then you have even more flexibility to really build in from the beginning what people are looking for. And it makes it even easier to sell it and market it and stuff, if that makes sense. And I think it can be confusing because some people, what they naturally want to create is going to resonate with their audience because they are that customer. So what naturally occurs to them is going to be, without much work of research, it's going to be what they're looking for, because they don't have to try to figure out, they don't even have to think this way. They don't have to research their market. They just naturally create, and it is what the audience is looking for. But for the rest of us, and especially professional marketers and entrepreneurs, an entrepreneur is someone who can step into any space and create solutions to that group's problems. That's the skill set that we're learning about and teaching on Start the Snowball, is how to do that, for any group of people. So, but yeah, it does come back to empathy, and but if that sounds overwhelming to you, if you're not like a naturally empathetic person, don't worry, because we've got practical step-by-step strategies where you don't have to be, I don't have to be a clinician but now, after spending a week going through this process, I feel like I understand at least one segment of the therapist market quite well, because I've listened to them, and to be honest, I didn't talk to anyone in that week. I used some other methods that we'll discuss. But there's a pretty, I listened and I cared. And there's a phrase a lot that's said in copywriting and sales that there's nothing new under the sun. I think as entrepreneurs and creators, we like to think that we're always creating something new, but in the copywriting world and the sales world, they kind of stick to, there's nothing new under the sun. When you come up with a new product, you're finding a new way to present an old problem. Human beings have had the same problems for tens of thousands of years, and we're always coming up with new ways to solve the same core problems. And I was reminded of that digging into the therapist industry, is like, oh yeah, they're human beings. They're struggling with these uncertainties, insecurity and fear, and, insecurity about being good enough at their job. And, it manifests in different ways, and they use different words to describe it. And they're looking for different specific solutions to solve those problems, but the problems are still the same. So that's a relief, I think.
And honestly, who better? So it switches from, I've got this, I am the epiphany, I'm the idea generator, my ideas are the best. And you see a lot of jealousy within really guarded, like jealousy with the ideas and entrepreneurial discussions. I'm not going to say entrepreneurs, I'm saying entrepreneurial discussions. And I typically get it when it's like, will you sign an NDA so I can talk to you about this? I'm like, you're coming to me for advice and you want me to sign an NDA? No, thank you. Because when you value your ideas over this type of stuff, I guarantee you, every idea you've ever had, like you said, nothing new under the sun, someone else has currently, probably a group of them, probably lots of them have had it. There's 7+ billion people in the world. I mean, if you think you're that
Yeah.
genius, maybe stop listening to the show and go consult one of our clinicians because you've got some
Yeah.
grandiose problems there. But I really do love this because it does feel natural. And there's some things we'll talk about next, the process we dig in, that when I say you listened, you shared back with me, and I feel like I've been working with clinicians for over a year now. And you shared some things back. I was like, that's refreshing to hear. You were listening to videos and things like that, and you heard things back. And what better way, all that to get back to, let the customer create the product out of their pain,
Yes.
you know?
Yes. I
So
love that. That is, go ahead.
yeah, that's what I think the shift for my mind I've been trying to do is really reorient to go, not the epiphany on high. I came down from the mountaintop and I'm blessed the world with my idea. Ideas are BS without
Yes.
execution. But
Yeah.
switching it over to the ego, switching it over to actually, if you listen properly, the customer will create the product for you.
Yeah.
Uh,
And likely someone else has created a product that's close to what you want to offer, and you can borrow ideas from that as well, because someone's done the hard work of addressing the problems of a market already, probably somehow.
yeah.
So do you think are we ready to talk through the process now of how you go from not knowing what your audience is looking for, not knowing what kind of products you should sell, not knowing how to talk to your audience in a way that motivates, inspires, and makes impact on them, to having a really good idea and basically knowing exactly what you should say?
Absolutely. We've been dangling the carrot for them. All right. So
All right.
I want you to start with this, Brad, because you've been, I mean, up to your like neck in this type of work the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I was reminded again, this is how as a marketer I can look really intelligent. I can look like a genius essentially, because spending a week doing this process, I suddenly can speak with some authority about what this group of people is thinking and feeling and what they're struggling with. And I didn't have a lot of confidence when I first started working with you on that project, because I was like, well, I haven't really, been to a lot of therapy yet. But now I have confidence. I feel like I kind of understand them. So here's where I started, and I think everybody should start, is first build a central research hub document. So for me, Google Docs works really well for this. And I just opened a new Google Doc, and this is basically going to be the place where I collect the best pieces of information that I think matter for this group of people. And things I'm going to be looking for, just as an overview of what we're talking about, is patterns in the problems that they talk about a lot, the way that they talk about their problems, like the language they use, the phrases that might be specific. A lot of people call this like jargon, like what's the jargon inside that group of people, like WordPress developers might have specific jargon that they use. They might refer to GitHub, whereas any other human being on the planet would say GitHub. That's not a word. You just said a nonsense thing. Or entrepreneurs, like you said NDA earlier, and that triggered something. I was like, oh, if people who haven't been in the business world for a long time heard that, they wouldn't know what you just said. It would sound like gibberish. Or Magic the Gathering, one of my hobbies that I'm really into, we've talked about in another podcast. If I say it's a 2-drop or a mill deck, like that means nothing to somebody who isn't in the Magic the Gathering space. So that's another thing you want to look out for, and to start keeping in your central doc, is patterns of problems that you hear come up again and again that people are looking for solutions to, complaints that they have, things they're excited about, and then jargon that they use to talk amongst themselves. And so we're going to look for those patterns, and we're going to keep them all in one central place. And then I'm going to show you where you can go look and collect all of these things to put into your central doc. So I like Google Docs. I know, Corey, you're a big fan of mind maps.
Yeah. Yeah. Having a central place just to put it, and Google Docs, I mean, come on, that's a free, simple solution. And it's where we can collaborate and actually look at stuff and add notes and go back and forth. And I think it doesn't get easier, especially if you're trying to collaborate with other people. But I want to say one thing too, as you approach this, I always love to kind of build you up because you're always like, I'm not sure about this. I'm like, oh my God, Brad, you're going to wake up and you're going to do this in the morning and you're going to do it well. But it's part like if I could go back to my college experience, I would probably just spend my time in studying like anthropology, sociology, and psychology as an entrepreneur. You can learn the rest, like business and stuff like that. But I think those and finance and stuff like that, but or hire experts to come in. But these three seem so core to the entrepreneur because what you're doing is you're studying. I can imagine us having like you and I have binoculars
Mm.
and we're looking out, and we're trying to go like, hey, did you hear them say that word? What do you think that means? It's the study of all this stuff. So you can get in if you're not, and even if you are one of the people you're trying to study and understand. But anyway, back to the central repo. I think that's absolutely vital as you're the anthropologist, sociologist, and psychologist.
I love that. That's such a great analogy and a great way to think about what we're doing here. I really, really like that, Corey. It's, you know, my partner and I have been getting into birding lately. And
Uh-huh.
so, I'm starting to learn the jargon of birding. And it's funny, you mentioned binoculars. That's like the first tool that you get as a birder
Uh-huh.
to get better at birding is a binocular. So birders really care about the binoculars, right? So if I were to write a newsletter or an article for birders or make a YouTube video, well, I'm probably going to talk about my binoculars. And I love that you said that. And the way that we look at birds is we're like, oh wow, that's a Baltimore Oriole. Look at how it moves. It sings a little differently than other birds. And we're looking for these like patterns. Oh, they seem to like, you know, just in case you were wondering, Baltimore Orioles seem to really like to eat jelly, like fruit jelly, or oranges. So that's such an awesome thing. So that's exactly what we're doing with the audience that we want to serve with our products, with our podcast, with our website. We need to find out what are the things that attract them, what are the things that repel them, what are their patterns of behavior, what do they care about, what do they laugh about, what do they cry about, what are they scared of. Ah, man, that's such a beautiful analogy. I love that anthropology.
And as you do your study, you know this, that we have to put down our bias. Like if we got this shiny little light bulb idea thing going on, we got to best we can push that out of the way. And that's what I was doing early this morning, just trying to push out the shiny light bulb stuff for a second so I could get clear and not be clouded by what's going on. But you're coming into the bird, Baltimore Orioles. I didn't even know it was a thing. I know it's a baseball team, but like you're going, this is like an alien. You're like, that
Yeah.
scenario, you're not a human. If you were observing humans like we do here, we bring in our own bias. But here you're like, I didn't know birds ate fruit,
Yeah.
kind of thing, because you're looking at it as I'm a foreign alien to the planet. And I think that's another lens we should look at. Is like, imagine you got dropped off from a UFO, and here's some of the tactics you could do, which leads us to just talking to people as an alien, right? So we created a repository, and then I'll tell you, this is probably not my favorite, but if it probably is a favorite because I like to pretend I'm an introvert and don't like to do this, but if you can get in these authentic conversations with people, and there's a great book called The Mom Test we're going to put in the show notes. And the idea is if you can ask your mom ideas about this without her knowing essentially that you're trying to build something for her, well, she'll pay virtually any price for it because she loves you. But if you can pass the mom test where you're just trying to get at these, key questions, key learnings that you're trying to do, it's so critical. But all these other things are additive to hearing the voice and tone and inflection of another human being, or in this case, we're the alien anthropologists, and we're trying to review whatever or talk to whatever subject audience we've got. The Mon Test is a really good book for helping you do that.
I love that. That brings up a really great point. The mom test is, yeah, you can't just always ask your friends about whether an idea is good or not. You shouldn't have that set as your bar of whether your idea is going to work or not, because your friends love you and your family loves you, your mom loves you, and they're going to support basically whatever you're telling them. They're basically going to say, hey, that sounds great, go for it. And that's, again, sometimes that's going to work because what you organically came up with is also what the market is looking for. Let's go back to the Baltimore Oriole. If I love oranges and every day I'm just devouring oranges and I go, you know what, I bet Baltimore Orioles would also love oranges, well, then I might just accidentally nail it first try because I'm just obsessed with oranges. And I think, every being on the planet should love oranges. Whereas if I go out and I say, I love eating peanut butter, and I go out and I put peanut butter out there, well, it's going to attract certain birds, love peanut butter, but other birds, which I'm not sure if any birds eat peanut butter, actually, as I say that. So don't necessarily feed birds peanut butter. But, Baltimore Orioles may never show up and you'll be like, oh, well, I guess, but if you do some research so anyways, the mom test is great because certain people will not give you the answer, but the audience will always tell you what they want if you know how to look for it. So I love that mom test. I'm going to keep that in mind.
Like some of the questions they ask is trying to remove bias from the subject out, And so, hey, I noticed it's staying curious, like your good friend Steve Lackey says, stay curious. And it's how, like here's some of the questions. How much time do you spend on that each week? I'm just curious, and so this is a blog setting, for instance. How seriously do you take your blog? If you're trying to do something customer set that uses a blog, for instance, do you make money from the blog? I'm just curious. What tools or services do you use for it? And here's a great one. What are the 3 big things you're trying to fix and improve right now? Now, some of this can start to, sound overly researchy. You got to be careful. What you're trying to do is get them naturally talking about what it is. And if you just go, hey, what's the biggest thing keeping you up at night right now? Or what's the biggest frustration you have? Sometimes you got to nuance that as you're talking to your Baltimore Orioles or little aliens, we're trying to figure them out. But if you just try to get at, I'm curious about your problems, not trying to solve them. I'm just here to just learn more. I'm just being curious and learn more. Then you get to those things. But then it leads to all of the research that you do, which I think is the full picture. Get some conversations in, and then there's ways that you don't have to recreate the wheel to learn these. This is why I think what you've done in the last couple of weeks is so brilliant, because it's really, you've done some hardcore learning.
Yeah. And we're talking about the first pillar of your research is talking to real people. Now, I will admit, again, I tend to avoid this because I don't know why, but I have like some kind of fear of talking to people. But in one of my previous lives, I was actually a dating coach. And part of my job was to go out and talk to people and just meet strangers and help other people meet strangers. So one thing that I learned from talking to thousands of people all over the world, complete strangers, is that people love to tell you their problems. People love to talk to you about what's on their mind. It's not always their problems. So like one question we used to teach people to say as a great conversation starter is like, what did you eat for breakfast this morning? Or what wakes you up in the morning? If you want to go a little deeper and be like a little, get a more impassioned, a passionate response, then you might say, what wakes you up in the morning? Like, what are you excited about in life? And everybody all over the world, people will tell you. I mean, we as human beings, how often does another person ask us a question like that? How often does somebody, because most people, we're all just going about our day, just saying, hey, how's the weather? How's work? How are you feeling? Are you good? It's not a real question. But when you take time, and you're amazing at this, Corey, a lot of times when we have personal talks, you really take time to say like, hey, what's on your mind? Like, what are you excited about? Well, what's keeping you up at night, essentially? And you think it might sound kind of unnatural, but man, it feels so good for us to be heard as human beings. So
yeah.
I say fire away.
We always, have things that are going on and want to share with other humans. And being that approachable person where someone feels they can trust you, I think there's 2 sides to the pain thing. I was just writing down here, Brad, is like, I've been focused on the pain, but there is what you just mentioned was the aspirational side, like their dreams. Pain is what's keeping them back potentially from their dreams. And so those are two things. Like if we talk about the mom test and the blog, what do you hope to? I just asked this question actually right before this call. Uh, what do you hope to be? Where do you hope to be in 3 years? Like we're coming back, we're checking in 3 years from now, and this is a Dan Sullivan strategic coach question. What does your life look like? What does your business look like? What is all that and best you can in high five detail? Um, because those two are so powerful. We know from our therapist research, there's pain points that they have technologically, which help with what we're trying to do. There's aspirations. Everybody wants to make more money. Everybody wants to get paid well for what they do in the world. And I think those are two bookends. Pain is what we're concentrating on now. But there's also this aspiration to get people talking about their dreams. Okay, now tell me what's in your way. What's the obstacle in your way to get to the dream? And you start to uncover like more of a composite picture. And in my previous company, we had a lot of competition. We were one of the first in our space. And then the space started getting really crowded. And I realized the only thing I could differentiate and really own is that if I knew my customer better than anybody, we call them our community members, customer community. If I knew our customer community better than everybody and try to help solve and help get away and anticipate problems and challenges and help them reach their goals faster, that's a powerful business. That's why this is not just a one and done thing. This is the whole fabric of your business if you're doing it right. Okay. Let's get to the nitty gritty because I think this is the fun stuff that it was like light bulb came off for me and going, oh, duh, go listen to your customers. They've got it all posted online somewhere. So the next thing you put on here. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
That's the beautiful part is this has already been done. Thankfully. Oh, this might sound so overwhelming, but it's awesome. All right. So the first place I love to look for getting a sense for what your potential customers are struggling with, what they're frustrated with, what they're excited about, and what they care about is Amazon reviews. So I'm gonna say books, and I think that's gonna cover most industries. Maybe you might be selling like physical products, and you can check out reviews for physical products as well. But let's just start with books. Let's say you're wanting to create a YouTube channel about birding. Well, the first step that I would do is look for, if you go to Amazon and just simply type in birding book or best birding book, right? Amazon naturally, algorithmically, is going to bring to the top the best sellers, and the best sellers mean the most popular, which mean these are the books that matter the most in your space. And that's so easy. I mean, it brings it right to the top. Now you find the most popular books in your category, and Amazon shows you what books people care about. And then you're going to go into the reviews for those books. And this is the gold mine. This is a literal gold mine. This is where your customers, your most vocal and passionate customers have said the things. They will just say it plain as day in those reviews, what they're scared about, what they're angry about, what they're sad about, what they're happy about, what they love about this book. So I love to look at the title of the review, because a lot of times that title, they'll say best book ever about birding, or they'll say this birding book sucks, didn't cover what I was hoping, didn't even talk about Baltimore Orioles, right? And you'll see an angry, frustrated human being expressing their thoughts on the internet and saying this book sucks because it didn't talk about what to feed birds. And that's all I wanted from this book. And that's such a gold mine, because now you go, great, I can cover everything else that was in that book, and I'm going to add a whole front section right at the front that says how to feed birds, right? Like, I'm going to nail that. Maybe I'll create a whole separate product that's just all about how to feed birds, because I see 5, 6, 10, 12 people in these reviews are saying, I wish it covered how to feed birds. I wish it covered how to feed birds. Or,
and those statements are gold mines. I wish. That's a customer raising their hand. They've gone through the process of like logging in, or one, reading the book, logging in and going, that's a pain point. That's an anger, frustration point. I wish they did this. Such good things. And I know when you put together a book proposal, what you do is you look at the shelf. When you're thinking about a new book, you look at the bookshelf. You go to a bookstore, these things really did exist at one point. These bookstores, you go and see physical copies of them and see what's the left or right of whatever category and genre. But this is Amazon's there. Well, 100 steps past that, which is look at the bookshelf, but then look at the comments. And that right keyword, you say, I wish, are so good. And oftentimes there's probably some troll comments in there, but there's a lot of this discovery of pain points and stuff like that. And I love the Amazon. It just feels like when you said that the other day, I was like, oh, duh. Like,
Yeah.
totally makes sense.
Yeah, and that's why I love having that central doc, because it kind of becomes your filtering mechanism. Now, some people might say, "Oh, there's an easy way you can just copy and paste all the reviews." Honestly, think you need to sit there. You need to take in those reviews and filter out the stuff, the troll stuff, the like if I had sent you a list of Amazon reviews for the therapist industry, that was just every review possible. It's too much information. It's not meaningful, and you would have probably felt overwhelmed. But instead, I was the filter, and I took time to say, okay, I picked this review because it seems to represent this group of complaints, or it's talking about an area that nobody else has talked about, that if one person of these reviews, like Amazon reviewers are the most kind of motivated people, but for every reviewer, I learned this from doing e-commerce stuff, for every, like, if a product has 10 reviews, that probably means 1,000 people bought it. So on Amazon, 1,000 people, most people don't leave reviews. Most people don't comment. It's not, I've never left a comment on Amazon personally, and I've bought thousands of products probably, but the people who do, they represent these huge groups of people, right? Those 10 reviews represent thousands. So it's awesome. It's just this perfect, like, refined way of finding information. So other things I look for in those groups, and you want to filter and then record in your repository, in your central research document. And then you can go back, and then when you go read those reviews that you recorded, it's just so fresh, and it's just like, oh yeah, this is a very clear, focused picture of who these people are and what they care about and how I can help them. So I also look for complaints. We talked about that with, I wish and stuff like that. But if for example, some of the books that I was reviewing specifically in the therapy industry, well, therapists are very well educated, and I think, a lot of the criticisms of these books is that they were too self-helpy or too kind of like fluffy, right? So that's a complaint. So then when you go to write your copy on your sales page or an email or whatever, you can say there's no fluff in this book. Now you have to deliver on that, right? Obviously, but just say this is like brass tacks, step by step. And a lot of people, you can tell from the comments, are going to love that. That's the Amazon gold mine that works for any industry, literally birding. Go in,
Yep.
use that as a case study and say, hey, I want to just pretend I want to create a YouTube channel, or I want a podcast. And every of those comments is another podcast episode, or another blog article, or another section of your product, or another piece of your website that sells your product, right?
And while you're there, you might as well look at the table of contents. Switch over to the, a lot of good books have reviews, or not reviews, but the table of contents from Amazon. And so while you're there, see how concepts are laid out. Doesn't mean you have to buy the book. We're going to go buy all the books that you found, but seeing the table of contents and how an author might, what they're doing is trying to condense expertise and experience down into this thing that somebody will buy for $10. That takes a lot of work. They've done a lot of work for you. That's the one thing I've been reminded of, is that you don't have to recreate the wheel. It's already out there, And so look at the table of contents, maybe skim a couple chapters in addition. But I think that's great advice.
All right. So the next gold mine that we're going to go mine and bring back to your central document is YouTube. So this one was really where I started with this project, and I went from completely like in the dark about this group of people and how we could serve them and how to talk to them, to having a really clear picture about about it. And the way that I did it was I did what I call channel audits. So you look for the top, let's call it 5 to 10 channels in a niche, right? So all you have to do is go to YouTube, type in, birding, and then sort by channel. And that's going to bring YouTube, again, the algorithms bring the best to the top, right? So the top 5, 10 channels listed for birding are going to be the most popular birding channels. That means human beings have voted with their thumbs up and their subscribes for these channels and the content on them. Okay, so that's level 1, is you get a list of the top handful of channels in the industry. Well, then next, you're going to pick one of those channels. I would start with the top one, and then you're going to go to that channel page, and then there's an option to click on videos where it shows you all the videos they've ever made. And then you can sort by, and I would sort by most popular. So that's going to bring the most popular videos that channel, which YouTube is telling you is the most popular channel for the niche. Now you're going to bring the most popular videos for the most popular channel to the top. And so that makes your process of trying to evaluate how important these topics are to the market very easy. So the top video on the top channel for that topic is very important to that group of people generally, right? So
Yeah, especially if that person in our case happens to be a clinician, in our case, or the target customer group. So one, you got people talking to them. But second, even I think more important, like you discovered, is if the person is the customer demographic talking to your demographic, that's it's pretty critical. That's why I said earlier, you've been listening. You listen to tell us a little bit about how the little hacks you have about doing that, because like I was like, oh man, you went through a lot of that channel last week.
Yeah, so my biggest secret with that is, number one, the central doc. I mean, that's very important. Is like I can listen for a while and then something will be said that I want to record, and then I go back to the doc and I know that it's recorded and I don't ever have to watch that video again if I don't want to. But the other tip is, if you can, not everybody has audio processing abilities, I guess, as high, but I can listen to videos at 2x speed, so twice as fast, and my brain can perfectly comprehend that. I find that a lot of people can do that. So if you're listening to like podcasts, or in this case, YouTube lets you go up to 2x. I wish it would actually go higher because I could consume the information even faster, but 2x is pretty good. So I'm literally watching these videos at twice the speed, and then I'm watching them in order of how popular they were to the audience. So that's another kind of hack. But yeah, I would say listen to it at 2x speed if you can. If you can't do 2x, then go 1.2, 1.5, 1. Whatever you can tolerate. And that's just going to help you get through the information faster. So that's how you can compress something that could take decades to learn about a group of people. And I got a pretty good idea in about a week. Even in a couple days of just watching the first couple groups of those videos, I had a pretty good idea. I was like, I wouldn't have guessed that the therapist market is so interested in this topic.
And you nuanced something that we talked about with that, because you heard it from, like, there's something different about written or typed to voice. And like doing this YouTube stuff, I honestly wouldn't have put it on there because even though I do a ton of video type stuff, I'm not an audio learner. But by doing this, you nuance some of the way we would message, which is so critical. Like, we're only talking about the research phase here, but all of this goes to use because it tweaks your messaging, which is so critical. Once you found problem, identified solution, now you need a message. So good.
Yeah, and so some of it's just copy and paste, right? Like you can look for patterns in the headlines of the videos. I mean, so the headlines, if that headline is successful on YouTube, that means that group of people clicks on that headline. If the thumbnail has a certain look to it, then if you take that headline and then go write an email to your email list that's in this market, Well, it's probably going to get a high click-through rate. If you take that headline of a YouTube video that's very popular and gets a lot of engagement in the industry and go put that as the headline on a sales page, or the title of a new book, or the episode title of a podcast, well, the chances are it's going to work. It's going to work better than whatever you would have guessed, because it's already been proven. That's the beauty of this. It's been proven. At least on a small scale, that headline has worked to this group of people. So it's going to keep working, nothing new under the sun. So look for patterns in headlines, and some of those headlines you can just copy and paste and use for yourself. Thumbnail images, I like to look for patterns of the channel. So when I look at that channel overview, I just kind of see certain niches of people. They're very design friendly. So if you want to make thumbnails that appeal to them, well, maybe you should try to put some effort into making nice designs. Other niches don't care at all about design, so don't worry about it. They just want, the marketing niche, they don't care about design that much. From my experience, because I've built a YouTube channel in the marketing niche, they just want tutorials, they want results, so they don't care. My best performing thumbnails in the marketing niche are just a black background with giant white text. It doesn't have anything to do with me. They don't care who I am. I'm just answering a question that they have. Look for topics that come up all the time on the channels, and specifically the topics that rise to the top. So I know as a YouTube creator, I've built a channel from scratch. I know the process, and I know what that person that I watched all of her videos, I know the process she went through to discover. She put out lots of content, and if you keep scrolling down to their least popular videos, you'll find all of their failed attempts where they put just as much effort into the video. They spent lots of time researching and building it, but nobody cared. And I've done that. I've spent lots of time on videos that nobody cared about. They never got any views. So it really means a lot when you look at the top videos that rose to the top for that channel, because I know from experience that it was really hard for me to find those winners. So you're just kind of scooping off those winners right from the beginning. So it's really, really good.
And it's like you said, I love one of your first tips is like, you can see right there. You're like, Corey, watch this. And you said, I just sorted by popularity. And I was like, gold mine. Oh my God. And then I look at dates and I go, okay, it's been there for this long. Okay. But kind of see a sense for what are the most popular topics. And again, it's not guessing.
Yeah.
This is a more informed approach. It's just not your hunches.
Yeah, exactly. And so another tip with YouTube research is a tool called vidIQ. It's just a really amazing tool. It's free. It's like a little Chrome extension that you can download, and it will basically start adding all of this overlay options for when you're looking at YouTube, that it just shows you like, hey, this topic is trending right now. Or if you look at a channel, it has a feature where it does its own channel audit, and it will tell you what are the most popular keywords that this channel ranks for. So you can reverse engineer other people's successful discoveries that they probably worked really hard for. And I've done this, in every niche myself. So that's just the way it goes. But vidIQ will tell you like, oh, for example, my channel was popular for Bing ads and ClickFunnels. Those were the two things that had the most traction of all the videos I made. So Google thinks of my channel as like about Bing ads and ClickFunnels, at least for now. And vidIQ can tell you that. So just by clicking a couple buttons with vidIQ, you don't even have to spend as much time researching, what is this channel really, what are the most popular topics that this channel covers? vidIQ can kind of tell you that in a couple of seconds. Now, I still recommend going through and doing a lot more research, but to fill in all those gaps, but at least right away, you can say, okay, the most popular channel, what Google thinks this channel is about this thing, and this thing. So if I make, again, content, emails, products about this thing, and this thing, I have a pretty good shot in that market. And every single one of those videos, you can think every channel, and then specifically every video is it's a magnet for a group of people. And you can look the final tip on researching YouTube channels to help figure out what your market wants is to look at the comments. Now, YouTube comments can be very trollish. It takes a lot less effort to put a YouTube comment than it does in Amazon. So I'd say they're on the whole, they're a lot less valuable, but still look for the trends, try to weed out the trolls and the spammers, and just, if somebody says, wow, this video really helped me. I was wondering, do you also have any thoughts on blank? Well, that's another thing that this group of people cares about. So YouTube has done the work and drawn all of these people. They use their algorithms to find, if there's a video that's about how to attract Baltimore Orioles to your bird feeder, well, guess who's watching that video? Guess who's thumbs upping and commenting in that? If it's gotten 1 million views, well, that's 1 million people all over the world who are very specifically interested in how to bring Baltimore Orioles to their feeder. Those are the only people who have watched it. Those are the only people that are going to comment and thumbs up and all that stuff. So take advantage of that. It's another gold mine.
All right, your last one today. And there's a lot of, I think about, these are fishing holes to go, like, I'm from rural Oklahoma, so we always fished, but, places to go find fish in, and starting with Amazon, prolifically all the book titles out there. I can't remember the stat, but it's big how many books are published every year. Amazon's made it quicker, easier to do so, but also to find. You talked about YouTube, another great place. There's other social channels you might look on and see what resonates with people, with views and stats you can see in topics. I love that you curated though YouTube, because it wasn't on my radar either. There's another one you want to share today of importance that you've looked at today.
Yeah, the last one is a tool a lot of people don't know about. It's called the Facebook Ads Library. It's free and it's public. And basically, it will show you, it doesn't show you every single ad being run, but it basically shows you a collection of ads that companies are running for a specific topic. So whatever you type in, it's going to show you some of the most popular ads that are running right now for that topic, right? So again, using the birding example, if you typed in birding, well, if anybody's running ads to birders, well, the Facebook Ads Library will likely show you some of those ads. So again, you want to look for patterns. You want to look for headlines that are used frequently. You want to look for branding, design styles that those companies are using, because chances are they hired somebody like us to come in and do this research, and they didn't just pick that design out of thin air. I mean, maybe they did, but probably not. If they're spending money on ads, it's probably working. It's probably making them money. So again, it's another shortcut to knowing what resonates in this market, because someone is spending money on those ads and they chose those headlines for a reason. They chose the design scheme for a reason. And they chose, one thing I like to do is click on the ads and see where it takes you and what they're offering, right? So if they're offering a free ebook about bird feeders, then maybe you should think about offering a free ebook about bird feeders to your audience. So it's just another shortcut. It's amazing that it exists. I mean, I can't believe that they let us see all of these ads for free.
And so back to your central repo, as you're going along, as you got your binoculars on, you're listening, ears open, you're just cataloging things. So as you're going there, you're going to pop up when you talk about the ads as competitors. We need to put that, go ahead and document that in your central repo, the adjacents, what products and solutions are out there. This is what you've done for us over and over and over again, which is, hey, there's this landscape of products and solutions out there. And just seeing what's out there, it's oftentimes, this is where pride gets in my way, is because I think, I've got the best idea, right? And then I don't want to look at other people because I don't want to copy them. But I think it was Picasso said the best artist steal. Maybe I butchered that one. But, you should go do your due diligence. And as you're popping up, particularly with the ad stuff, document those competitors so you can come back in your next type of research and have that material while you're already spending the time. And that makes me remember, we should mention the book that you and I have been really diving into that's been a good help, which takes a more scientific approach to doing this, which is called Disciplined Entrepreneurship, 24 Steps to a Successful Startup. This is a great book. It's very scientific, I think, but if you mentioned earlier, if you're not like the most empathetic person, then you're probably a scientist. You're probably thinking like a scientist of data collection. And that book is a great, literally a step-by-step for being technical about this. But I think, Brad, you showed like the power of all these tools that are free, right there at
Yeah.
your fingertips. You could spend an afternoon and get a really good glimpse of what you need to do next.
Yeah. And I love all that. The copying thing, I was going to address that as well. And I think it could be a good place for us to sign off. But just remember that when you create your version of talking about those topics, it inherently is going to be unique because you're creating it. You're going to bring your own special blend, your team, your company. You cannot copy word for word, obviously, what somebody else has done, and you will never be them. You will never say the same words the way that they say them. You won't have the same insights that they have. You'll have your own insights. You'll have your own perspective. So I think when I learned that, it alleviated a lot of that concern about like, well, I'm just doing what everybody else is doing. Well, they're doing it and you're seeing it because it resonates with the audience. So the audience cares about that topic. But when you do your version of it, it's inherently unique because you're bringing your own team to the project. You're bringing your own words, you're bringing your own visual style, you're bringing your own, life experience, or your team's life experience, your own skills. I'm sure you've seen in all of the industries you're involved in, lots of people come up with the different solutions to the same problems, right? Helping people get clients. Well, some people are going to say, go knock on doors because they've been doing it for 30 years and it works. Well, other people are going to say, I never knocked on a door. I just post things on LinkedIn, and both of them work. So but the point is that audience cares about how to get clients. So when you come to it and you offer your perspective on how to get clients, that's going to be a different take that's going to bring in the right people. So I would say that's my answer to the, what if I don't feel creative if I'm not, if I'm just copying everybody else's ideas. Well, the creativity comes in your unique version of answering that question for the audience.
Great way to end this episode. An awesome and foundational one. Okay, that's a wrap for the Start the Snowball podcast, episode 6 on audience research. Be sure to subscribe at startthesnowball.com. Give us a review on your favorite podcast. And Brad, it'll be fun to keep talking on this subject, and we'll be back next time to talk some more about entrepreneurship and keep that snowball rolling.
Thanks, Corey.